Oh, and good evening. It's June 3rd, 2025, and we're continuing our discussion collection in the Outside the Class series. This series, from the Bible Project, covers the entire TaNaK, also known as the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament. Those source videos, they're available for your review on TheDustyFeet.com in that Outside the Class section. Because the intent of Outside the Class is for you to listen to the in-class lecture first, because we're going to try to keep these to about 15 minutes. I want to make them easy to catch up on. So we're on a quest, scroll by scroll, book by book, a journey through this collection, just maybe with a fun and different twist. Our hope with the Dusty Feed is to foster discussion and help build and support communities. If you are not already connected to a community or just want to share and interact, this community has 4 primary ways to interact. 1. DustyFeet.com. That's our primary place to find everything. You are always free to comment. 2. Facebook, at TheDustyFeet. These videos and other videos are also available for comment and discussion. And 3. We have a Discord channel. The invite link is there below. Be vocal, be written, be loving. And 4, and as always, you are welcome to send an email to bob@TheDustyFeet.com. These places, they will be moderated, and guidelines will be set to ensure healthy, safe discussion. And as always on the Dusty Feet, this is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God and the interconnection of His creation. Belief understandings may be challenged, divine misunderstandings may exist, and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. And of course, before we forget, if you find these kinds of podcasts useful, it's when you click that subscribe button. Those reminders, they just help you. But also, if you think these might be useful to other people, that is when you click that like button, because that is how YouTube will choose to share these to more people if they wish. So in this series, we're going to cover the entire TaNaK, or the Old Testament, in the original order of the Hebrew Scriptures. But we need to remember, the videos we're going to discuss are just the tip of the iceberg. They're part of this learning series that I highly recommend, and all of them can be found on the Bible Project website. Because we're going to ask many questions about various things. Answers? We'll see. So Samuel, the first scroll, this is our part 7, right? As we left off, Samuel's been judging Israel his whole life. And he has sons. And we're going to reach a point where there's maybe a break in a pattern that occurs. That might just lead to more chaos. But one of the things that seems consistent throughout Scripture is that God often gives us over to our own devices, our own choices. God has, and I want to figure out how I want to do this. My mom and I just had a discussion, a recent talk about purpose and plan and the differences between the two. So it would be interesting, as I struggle through this, to consider differences between purpose and plan. I might unintentionally mix the two, but I don't intend to. So with that in mind, I think God had a purpose for Israel. He let them know that from the giving of the Torah. That would be the plan. And he reiterated that purpose and that plan just before they went into the land. Yep. Right after that, we delved into the scroll of Joshua, where we discover from the very beginning, they just didn't heed God. They didn't listen to what he wanted. This isn't one of those situations where, say, they did everything the way it should have done or the right way, and then things fell into disarray afterwards. We just have them starting off on the wrong foot. God continues to make it clear. I'll tell you what I want you to do, what my expectations are. It's just up to you whether you choose to follow them or not. That's from the garden, right? The purpose is to represent him, God, to the rest of the world. the plan, that was Torah, as he presented it to them, because he said it's good, it's just up to us to choose whether we choose to follow it or opt out, right? We come up with an alternative plan. And this stands out in this 8th chapter, the Scroll of Samuel, because Samuel's been doing what God's wanted him to do. Israel was prospering under Samuel's judgment, as in him acting as judge and guiding Israel in their decisions. But I mentioned a break in the pattern. And I think what we have here is a little interesting because we've had parts of stories in the past that we've been covering, we've been reading about, right? You're very well aware that the father might be doing what God wants him to do, but maybe the sons, not so much. So I want us to begin as we think of chapter 8, and we can set the tone for what we're going to see afterwards. The interaction that Samuel has both with the Lord and with those elders of Israel, right? So 1 Samuel 8:1, and it came about when Samuel was old, that he appointed his sons as judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, the name of his second was Abijah, and they were judging in Beersheba. His sons, however, did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after dishonest gain, took bribes, and perverted justice. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together, and they came to Samuel at Ramah. And they said to him, "Behold, you've grown old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. So now appoint us a king to judge us like all the nations." So the strange break that we have is that they're realizing who Samuel is, and he's giving them wise judgment. And they're taking the time to look at his sons and sometimes realizing the pattern that has in the past come from that. And they notice that the sons are not who they would like to see giving them judgment. Okay, so as we're about right here, Samuel is about to hear what they've said to him and what the response is to them, right? Because when Samuel talks, he's not defending his kids at all. They're not even addressed in this. From this, Samuel goes straight into asking for a king and how Samuel's initial response is, right? We get to verse 6. But the thing was displeasing in the sight of Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to judge us." And Samuel, he prayed to the Lord. And the Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to the voice of the people in regard to all that they say to you, for they've not rejected you. They have rejected me from being king over them. Like all the deeds which they've done since the day that I brought them from Egypt, even to this day, in that they have forsaken me and served other gods. So they're doing to you also. So then, listen to their voice. However, you shall solemnly warn them. Tell them of the procedure of the king who will reign over them." So again, to address the differences in thought, right? Their purpose, as mentioned in Deuteronomy and some of the books before that, was to serve as an example to the nations, to represent God to the nations. You know me, my unconventional way of thinking, upside down, right? I tend to look at things from a different perspective. Still, when God says you're going to be an example to the nations, that can actually go both ways. He wants you to be an example so that you're going to be an example. But that could be, how much can I bless you? Or the fact that because I am who I am, because you haven't, well, let's just say the other side of the promise happens. Remember, We've covered this many times. The promises given in Deuteronomy, the blessings and the curses, right? Those promises will go either way. That's a promise. Interesting to keep thinking about. So we arrive at the point where they decide that, unlike in the Torah, because there's no king structure, there is a leadership structure. There is a way to run an entire nation built on Torah with God as king. And I'd say it's the best way to do things. Why is it the best way? It's simple. Because God laid it out. He had it all laid out. And he was king. However, many years later, they aspire to emulate other nations by establishing a human king to rule them. Now, one of the interesting aspects that comes from with God giving us over to our own devices, right? Sometimes it's that we may think God has abandoned us and or them, right? And whatever happens, right? But that's not what happens in the biblical narrative. In this story and many other stories. Because here God says, okay, you want a human king. So here's what's going to happen when you want and have a human king. I'm not convinced that this warning Samuel is giving is necessarily a series of good things. I think it's a matter of paying attention to the warning because you realize it's going to cost you more. Because what he mentions here does not alter, it doesn't shift, or doesn't cancel anything that's in a part of Torah. It says, this is just going to be more. This is on top of those elements that are part of Torah, right? It's interesting to listen to this because it has an eerie sound to it because it's almost an echo from the past. Here's the original sound. But if we are across the valley, we're across the chasm, we're across time, I think we can still hear this even in our own circumstances today. As we've read, right? Samuel goes to God. God answers him. He tells him. And this is the response that Samuel gives to the people. It's almost a thought line. I don't know if it's just because we think of like this today or whether they would have thought of it back then. But I think this is kind of a warning of be careful. Be careful what you ask for. So 8:10. So Samuel spoke all the words of the Lord to the people who had asked of him a king. And he said, this will be the procedure of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons. He will place them for himself in his chariots among his horsemen, and they will run before his chariots. He will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and of 50s, and some to do his plowing, and to reap his harvest, and to make his weapons of war, and the equipment for his chariots. He will also take your daughters for perfumers, and cooks, and bakers. He will take the best of your fields, and your vineyards, and your olive groves. He will give them to his servants. He will take 1/10 of your seed, and of your vineyards, and give it to his officers, and to his servants. He will also take your male servants, and your female servants, and your best young men, and your donkeys, and use them for his work. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his servants. Then you will cry out that day because of your king whom you have chosen for yourselves. But the Lord will not answer you in that day. So after hearing that, take time, sit down, talk amongst yourselves, get your coffee and donuts of choice. Go back and listen to that. Ponder it. Think about it. It's interesting because when you listen to it this way, this type of expectation and leadership and how it's going to impact the community, especially the personal nature, how it's going to impact you, meaning it said your sons and daughters, not just that the people are going to be affected. That can sometimes be very distancing type of language. But here, the warning is your sons. It's your daughters. Military, government structure, service, taxes, fruit of your labor. This is the cost above and beyond what God expects for you to follow Him, because you asked for this in between. It's an interesting warning. And I thought, to me, I think it's worthy of us to discuss and think about it. So God's warning is given to Samuel. The children respond, right? Because we are where we are in this story. We've been reading it. We're probably not surprised by their response. But I'm not sure we should be asking the same thing, as in wearing the sandals. It's an uncomfortable view to take. I'm not unconvinced that we wouldn't ask, and sometimes do ask, for the very same thing. Unless the people, starting verse 19, unless the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel, and they said, no, but there shall be a king over us, and we also may be like all the other nations, that our king may judge us, go out before us, fight our battles. Now Samuel had heard all the words of the people. He repeated them in the Lord's hearing. That's a thought to ponder. And the Lord said to Samuel, listen to their voice and appoint a king. So Samuel said to the men of Israel, go every man to his city. The people ask. Samuel takes the matter to God. God responds, passes on the response to the people. They still make their choice. You got this? Okay, this is what's going to happen. This is what it's going to look like. Accept the terms? Seems they do. Search begins. Like we've said many times here in the Dusty Feet, it's interesting as you read the stories that God's involvement is on both sides of the equation, as in those that are following Him in His ways, His involvement with them, and those choosing not to follow His ways and His involvement with them. Not His lack of involvement with them, but His direct involvement with them. And then the people chosen, just like the judges, they might be chosen, but how do they choose to respond? This is a real life story. These are real people. I'm not unconvinced that we would wear or could wear the sandals very easily, right? It's not a far fetch. I mean, as a matter of fact, it's probably more a comfortable fit than it should be. Maybe we shouldn't be as comfortable with that. But we'll see as we continue along this marvelous first scroll of Samuel about a king. So, thanks for being with us tonight on another Outside the Class on the Dusty Feet.